You got to just do it for yourself because people are going to talk about you regardless. You got to just block that out and just do it for you. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, tomorrow's not promised. So I'm going to try to be able to just do as much as I can in that day. And no matter how tired I am, there's always room to sleep. There's not room to win. I want to make as much room in the world as I can to win and just go out there and do what I can. I feel like I get my best overall thoughts when I'm just kind of detached from my phone or detached from like electronics. But I will say, Ben, I feel like my ideas expand when I get on my phone. If that makes sense, because I'm starting to I have my TikTok set where if you like a certain amount of posts or a certain amount of ideas, or if I follow people like you on Instagram, I get this motivation. I get this stuff behind me as to why I should continue to do it or add some things or fix some things along. I would say I look up to my dad, you know what I'm saying? The words and the knowledge that he gives me each day, I would say it would be my father. I would say he's kind of an evil genius, but he's a quiet evil genius. So I appreciate what he teaches me, and I just give it to y'all, and I put a little bit of MJ in it.
You're listening to the Real Business Connections Network. Real Business Connections Network. Powered by Balbert Marketing, LLC. Subscribe now and check us out at realbusinessconnections.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome everyone once again to Rochester Business Connections on the Real Business Connections Network. I'm here with Michael Richardson II with Knowledge4Knowledge. What's good, man? How are you?
What's going on, Ben? How are you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm excited to be with you, man. Rochester Business Connections. You're a new connection, and I'm just curious. I want to let you lead here. Why do you think I brought you on?
Honestly, I hope that you just kind of like my vibe that I gave you in the class when we first met not too long ago, maybe beginning of my semester. I feel like I don't know, I just got a lot to bring, maybe a lot to say. I really don't know. I'm more excited than I think you are. I'm pretty excited to hear you talk.
Yeah, man. Well, it's you go to SUNY Brockport. I went to SUNY Brockport. I graduated in 2013. What's your graduation year?
I'm supposed to graduate in 2026.
Okay, so I'm old man by now, man. And I came in, I spoke a 10-year anniversary for me. I spoke to your class.
Yeah.
And I pay attention, right? I'm observant. You're there, you're observing, you're paying attention, you're asking questions. After the class, you're like, yo, can we do a reel together? I forget what you asked me, but we do a reel together. I'm like, yeah, who is this kid? Sure, whatever you want. And then I see you got knowledge. Is it Knowledge4Knowledge? FOR or four like a four?
Knowledge, the number four.
The number four.
Knowledge, yeah.
You got Knowledge4Knowledge, and you're putting out a podcast, and you're putting out reels, and you're paying attention in class. You're asking questions, and you're talking about mindset and personal growth. And when I was your age, man, I'm being honest, I wasn't doing none of that. I wasn't doing none of that.
It's all right. We'll get there.
So I was like, yeah, I like what this person's up to. I like what your future is going to be like. We'll see. So I'm like, let me bring them on. And what's the mindset of someone who's a young adult? And first off, let's start here because I want to talk about your mindset. Let's talk about Knowledge4Knowledge. What's the purpose of Knowledge4Knowledge in the first place?
So basically, last year I was going to Ithaca College, and I didn't have a very good last year I was a freshman in college, and I was going through some bad anxiety, and I just I was never one to go through bad anxiety. I was a pretty cool kid in high school. I had a lot of friends and all that. So going to college was super new to me, and it felt like I was in a world where I felt not alone, but I felt like I was myself, but I felt like I was looking through myself. I couldn't really I wasn't really making the moves that I wanted to do. I wasn't being the person that I wanted to be. So basically I was going through this bad anxiety, and I ended up leaving Ithaca College. I ended up dropping out my first semester, and I was going through some bad anxiety. And instead of going to a therapist or dealing with it some other way, I ended up just just doing it on my own. I ended up looking up Instagram Reels. I ended up looking up this thing I like to use. It's this Instagram Reel. It says, "Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me." And it helped me calm through all my bad thoughts. So I was in my head, I was just I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people that listen to what I say, and a lot of people respect me. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start something. And I always wanted to have my own little kind of clothing brand thing. So I came up with the thing called Knowledge4Knowledge. And I have no idea why I picked Knowledge4Knowledge, but I don't know if you use Snapchat, but I use Snapchat private stories, and I had I just posted it one day on my Snap. I have a good amount of followers on there, and like 500 people joined, and it just like kind of blew up for me. And it was like not super blew up, but it blew up for me on Snap. And a lot of people were just like respecting my hustle and all that, and ultimately just turned into this Knowledge4Knowledge page on Instagram and a podcast.
Dude, do you think the world needs more knowledge?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What happens if you don't? Do. What happens if you don't have the good knowledge, the right
stuff? You got a lot of misled kids or misled adults that turns into a misled world. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of people in this world that feel like, for example, that feel alone. And I think there's a lot of people that just don't know where they want to go in life. And I'm just trying to help people know that don't compare yourself to, I'm like, for me, I'm not going to compare myself to you, Ben. You know what I'm saying? I think I need to compare myself to me. And as long as I'm better than the person I was yesterday, that's really all that matters to me. I got to just keep going day to day, and I got to really trust the process and what I got going on.
Dude, I love that. One thing I say all the time is nobody's better than you. They're just farther along.
Right.
They're not better than you. They're just farther along. And that could be an age. They could have started with more money. They could have got opportunities. They also might live to be 60 when you live to be 85, and you're feeling like, oh, I'm not as far as them. Well, you've got a long life to live to actually get past them. So I love that. You had mentioned like being in a rough spot.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get out of that? Like, how did you get out of that darker place?
Honestly, like it's been over a year now it's been about a year and a few months since I was in that rough spot. Honestly, like it was from 2023 September to about, I want to say like January. I'll say I'll say 2022, September of 2022 to January 2023. I was in a rough mental spot, dude. I honestly, from like September, November, I didn't know like what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be stuck in this spot forever. And I learned something yesterday, and it was like, I wrote it down as a quote, and it says, you can never stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop the birds from building a nest. You can never stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop the bird from building a nest. And I ultimately just told myself, like, I had to stop. I talked to my grandmother that, isn't like an influencer, isn't a psychologist, anything like that. And she was like, every time that you have a bad thought, I want you to go against that, compete with it with 3 positive messages. And one thing, I had this word stuck in my head. It was this word like kill. And I couldn't get this bad message out of my mind. But I ultimately told myself that every day, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to kill it in the class. I'm going to kill it in the weight room. I'm going to kill it in my sports. And I ultimately just became this positive person every day. And I just like, every day that I just woke up and I just like thanked the Lord, and I just kept going, and I just tried to be as positive as I could. And over the days, as the days went on, I practiced Knowledge4Knowledge. I spoke to other people. And as I heard other people, what they were going through, I started to realize that I wasn't alone, and that I wasn't the only person going through this. And sometimes I had to just realize that I just needed someone to tell me that it was okay. But I also didn't realize I just needed to tell myself that at the end of the day, it was going to be okay. So that's ultimately what I did. I just ended up just stop letting the birds build this big ass nest on my head. And I just kind of just said, let's do it. And let's trust the process, and let's get going.
It sounds like 1, you validated yourself, and 2, you took some action. And I'm curious. So I haven't watched all your reels, you're putting out content more than anybody, man. It's impressive. Well, what are some of the things you're talking about?
There's some things I talk about. I talk about a lot of sometimes I talk about mental health, or I try to talk about a lot of things that I go through. You know what I mean? So sometimes, like the other day, I posted a content about my, I don't give like exact sources, but I give like experiences that I went through. So I went through some with my friends where I felt like I didn't feel like we were on the same page. But then I realized that, certain things happen for a reason. Oh no, actually, let me give you an example. I met this guy named Randy. I forgot his last name, but he hold on, let me look it up. He made a book, and I met him at a basketball game, and I was talking about how as long as you put yourself out there, you can meet. For example, I went to class one day. Wasn't even going to go to class. I think I was like 5-10 minutes late to class. And here you are, Ben Albert, sitting in my table. I'm like, who is this guy, right? And I'm in class and I'm listening to you. I'm like, dang, like he's saying some real stuff. Like I really like the way he's talking. I like what he's promoting. I like what he's doing. If you look up Ben Alberts on LinkedIn, he's got a great following. Instagram, he's putting out some great content. Podcasts, he's talking about some real stuff with some real people. And I just was like, man, like I started to talk about real experiences like that. I talk about how like if you put yourself out there in the most odd times or the most unexpected times, you meet the most weird or the most like genuine people in the world. So, for example, I was at a basketball game the other day. I met a good guy named Randy, and he made a book, and he's 70 years old. I just turned 20 the other day, and it's a 50-year difference, and we're making this connection like he was like my grandfather or something. So I just talk about like real life experience. That's why I call it knowledge for knowledge. For example, like what we're talking about right now is knowledge for knowledge. You're teaching me something, I'm teaching you something, and maybe one day down the line I'll make a post about it. But that's really all knowledge. So what knowledge is me speaking about real life experiences that I had or real life experiences that I've seen.
You better make a post about it.
Oh, I absolutely will.
So give me like 3 lessons you've learned thus far, and it could be just from your own personal growth or from people teaching it to you. But what are 3 lessons that you think the listener should know?
That's a good question, Ben. I'm not gonna lie, that's a good question because I ask myself this all the time. I would say number one, if you're someone that wants to get into content or you're someone that is like wants to, well, that's another rule. I would say consistency. I have this phrase where I say you can be consistently consistent or you can be consistently inconsistent. And I try to be pretty consistent in what I do day in and day out, whether that's going to the gym or making a post every day or just making sure I'm up to date with my LinkedIn or up to date with like my content. And that's really what I say. That's the number one. I would say number 2 would be is I don't know how to put this into words, but I would say believe in yourself, invest in yourself, and just live and maintain. And a lot of people put in so much like hours and so much like manifestation into other people. Like, for example, like there's people that probably watch us and they're like, oh man, like how do they do this? How do they sit here and how do they post all the time? Or how do they do this? Like, I wish I had the courage to do that. And, you know, for example, like Bill Gates everybody was delusional until it worked. You know what I mean? Everybody seemed like they weren't going to do something that wasn't going to work until it worked. So I would say number 2 is to believe in yourself. And number 3, trust the process. Rome wasn't built in a night. So I try to just say at every day, you know what I'm saying? Just make sure you're better than the person you were yesterday. And just overall trust the process that you're on. Just know that the path that you're on, it happens for a reason. You may not understand now, but one day you will. So trust the process, invest in yourself. And what the first one I said?
Consistency.
And
then repeat is what I'm hearing. Trust the process, invest in yourself. Consistency is the repetition.
You can repeat all of it over again every day.
They repeat over and over. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jamie Kern Lima, she sold it to L'Oreal Cosmetics, but she sold her cosmetic company for $1 billion to L'Oreal, I believe. $1 billion sale. And that was after she got spit on and told no hundreds of times. So basically she had, I forget the name of the condition, but she had a rare skin condition. And she was also a little bit overweight. And she wanted to create cosmetic products for like people that had this condition, like this rosy cheeks and things like that. And literally what this man said in her face one day, ain't nobody ever going to buy products from you. It's literally what he said to her. And she just kept on taking the no. And what she says is she was willing to take the no's because she had knowing, KNOW. She knew had knowing that it was going to work because there's women like her out there that need that help. And she believed in it and she prayed about it and she worked at it. And then she ends up selling for $1 billion because like she had her first infomercial. She put all her money into the opportunity. And in that first infomercial, it just started selling like crazy because there's women out there that looked like her, that had similar issues, that had insecurities. And she knew that she could do it. But the reason I bring this up is one of the things she says is you're not crazy, you're just first. And it's the same concept. You're not crazy, you're just first. Nobody's done it like you've ever done it before. Do you ever feel like being young and putting out like growth content and mindset and telling stories and being vulnerable, Like, do people think you're crazy?
I've never really had like a one-on-one connection where someone like literally told me that I was crazy. I had a friend of mine that I was not a super close friend, but someone I went to high school with. They told me that what I was doing was dumb. And I have a lot of people that like kind of like that I'm kind of close with that tell me like they'll like look at my post and they'll laugh and they'll be like, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll just be like, no way you believe in that. And it's kind of just like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't bother me. At the end of the day, I gotta realize like, you know what, they might seem like I'm crazy right now because I'm not working a 9 to 5 or I'm not sitting there all the time where I'm super like I'm trying to be different. I'm not trying to be Ben Alberts. I'm not trying to be Bill Gates. I'm not trying to be Elon Musk. I'm not trying to be Malcolm X. I'm trying to be Michael Anthony Richardson II. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be Knowledge4Knowledge. And I can't be you. As much as I want to try to be like you, at the end of the day, I'm going to go to sleep me. I'm going to die me. I got to just try to be me. And as long as, if that's crazy to somebody else, it's not crazy to me. You know what I mean?
I do. I can't believe you put my name and Elon Musk and like Malcolm X all in the same sentence. Like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. I'm just learning, man.
Everybody started off somewhere. You know what I mean?
True. So who are you? Like what are you trying to do?
Realistically, I haven't really had to open up to tell this, but if you go on like my LinkedIn, for example, my overall goal is to make people feel alone. I'm trying to create an app. I'm kind of in the works. I'm just writing stuff down. I'm trying to create an app. I'm trying to create an app called either Knowledge or it's going to be called Knowledge4Knowledge. And my overall goal is to create this app where people from your age length, and my age length can connect, and older people that can connect. And it's almost going to be like an app called like almost like Reddit. I don't know if you've ever been on Reddit, but it's going to be ultimately like, for example, my name is Michael Richardson II. I'm dealing with anxiety. So I'm going to go on there. And as soon as I open it, it's going to ask you a brief survey of like what you're going through. It's going to be like, how old are you? Maybe where you're from, something like that, right? And it's going to put you in the category of people that in your age length. And it's going to give you stories. Now, for example, for me, when I was going through my anxiety, I looked up symptoms of anxiety and it told me I was having like a heart attack. I was like, yo, why does my heart hurt? And I'm like, oh, I'm having a heart attack. Or for example, I got a headache. You got stage 4 brain cancer coming along, which is crazy. You know what I mean? When you Google the symptoms. But I'm trying to create an app where people feel safe and they don't feel alone. So instead of having to go to a therapist or having to look up Google symptoms or having to go to the doctor, I almost get that you're okay or that clarity when you go on my app. You realize that people your age are all going through it. It's just a step in the process. Like you said the other day in class, I still count my losses. I don't count my losses as losses. I count them as lessons. And you said something about how you take each brick, whether that's a win or a loss or a lesson, you still stack them up because that is still a step. You know what I mean?
Imagine you're building a brick house. You take a loss, you put down the brick. You take a win, you put down the brick. Because both the losses and wins are basically bricks in the home that you're building is the concept. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I want other people to realize that, you know what I mean? I don't want other people to just get the random 3 a.m. motivation on TikTok. I want them to have motivation. I want them to feel good about themselves. And the last thing I want someone to ever feel is alone. You know what I'm saying? Because at the darkest moments when you're sitting in bed and you're alone at night, you can't fall asleep, those are the times. You got to be able to find a way to persevere and get through it. Because the next day, you know what I'm saying? If you get tomorrow, hey, process starts all over again. It's either you're going to start negative or positive.
So that's going to be curated. Because we'll use TikTok as an example. You turn on TikTok because you're bored and you're alone. You don't really get to choose what they're going to show you. But this sounds like it's curating your experience to show you the stuff you need to see.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
That's exactly what it's going to do, actually. It's going to like, when it starts to blow up a little bit, and I believe in it, you know what I mean? I got to believe in it, because if you don't believe in it, I believe in it. Once it starts to get going, I'm going to have specific areas of it. It's going to be people that feel like, for example, like athletes. So if you're a college athlete, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to have other athletes, maybe famous athletes someday, or professional athletes go on there and give a quick minute and 30-second message. So like when you open that app, it's going to be like, you know what? Today I didn't feel like doing it, but after I heard that, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to go 110%. There's going to be so many other things. There's going to be people like me and you to go on there and talk. And you can like a live stream like Twitch. It's like, oh, shoot, Ben Alberts and the CEO of Knowledge4Knowledge are on there talking. Let's see what they're talking about. And it's going to be opening something like this. It's going to be a big thing. I think it's going to ultimately change the world. And what I want to do is I want to sell it to colleges. I want to sell it to businesses. And it's going to be ultimately like the like COVID-19, we had to do check-in lists. Knowledge for Knowledge is going to be a mental health check-in to just see how your day's going. It's going to ultimately just enhance performance for not only athletes, not only students, just for everybody in the world.
Let's go. Did you come up with this for class, or you just did this because you wanted to do it?
I was sitting in class one day. So my first time I ever sat down. Every time I have a good idea, I'm in class. Don't know why I'm in class. When I came up for Knowledge, I was in my consumer behavior class last year in Casanova College. Shout out Casanova College in Syracuse. It shut down last year, but I was sitting in Casanova College in my consumer behavior class. I came up with Knowledge for Knowledge. I was sitting the other day. I was sitting in class the other day in my advertisement in consumer behavior class that you stopped by in, and I came up with the idea of the app, and I just wrote it down. And ever since then, that was in like early January, and I've been sitting here grinding on it. I've been thinking about it all day, every day.
Can I make a theory? You can tell me if you think it's totally wrong.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're in class, I'm assuming you're not on your phone. You're no phones in class.
Right.
So like shower, gym, like it's the times when I'm not on my phone is when the best ideas come. And I'm wondering if you sometimes get ideas in class because you're like detached from technology and you let your mind wander. What are your thoughts on that? Because I have a problem with this. I feel like a lot of young people have a problem with this. I have a big problem with this. I'm like addicted to my phone, and sometimes I just put that baby down and then I get the best thoughts rolling.
Right. I would say that I kind of somewhat agree with you. I get my best starts when I'm sitting at the end of the bench of the gym, or I'm sitting in the classroom, or I'm sitting in the shower. Like you said, when I'm really just like detached from my phone.
You're sitting in the shower. You're just sitting there. I'm messing with you.
That was funny actually. But now when I'm standing in the shower, I get my best thoughts when the cold water is running down me. I feel like I get my best overall thoughts when I'm just kind of detached from my phone or detached from electronics. But I will say, Ben, I feel like my ideas expand when I get on my phone, if that makes sense, because I'm starting to I have my TikTok set where like if you like a certain amount of posts or a certain amount of ideas, or if I follow people like you on Instagram, I get like this motivation. I get this stuff behind me as to why I should continue to do it or add some things or fix some things along. So I would say that I get my best ideas behind detaching myself from electronics. But I'd also say I get my best motivation, my best encouragement while being on my phone too. So it's a win. It's a win-loss. It's a win-win, I would say.
Well, I'm thinking there's two things here. There's gaining the knowledge, and to get the knowledge, you got to get to the right people. You got to listen to the right stuff. You got to read the right books. You got to have conversations with some old guy at a game, and you end up becoming friends because he's got knowledge. But then the creativity comes when you kind of detach. So it's like you consume the knowledge, but then when you detach from consuming the knowledge, then it's like creative. So they're both good. You need to do both of them, it sounds like.
Absolutely. That's exactly. I absolutely agree with that.
I'm making this up as we go. I'm sure we got like a psychologist listening or a neuroscience. They can tell me if this is true, but it makes sense. Like it's left and right brain, there's creative and then there's more the structure. Who are you learning from? Like who are some of when you're jumping on TikTok, when you're listening to a podcast, if you're reading a book, like who are your go-to people?
I like to shout out Wallow, $1 Million Worth of Game podcast. I listen to a little bit of Drink Champs on Spotify or Instagram. I've tuned into a couple of your podcasts. I do like that. I look at a lot of your LinkedIn posts. I watch a lot of your LinkedIn posts, the one that I do, your Spotify posts, and I enjoy those. But I would ultimately say my number one person I learned from who I really feel like should do a podcast and doesn't have a podcast, be my dad. He has a lot of knowledge and he teaches me a lot of things. Like, you know what I'm saying? Tom Brady once said that his number one hero was his dad. And I would say I never really had somebody where I said I could look up to, but I would say I look up to my dad. You know what I'm saying? The words and the knowledge that he gives me each day, I would say it would be my father. And I would say he's kind of an evil genius, but he's a quiet evil genius. So I appreciate what he teaches me, and I just give it to y'all, and I put a little bit of MJ in it.
Well, what's that mean to you, a quiet evil genius? Well, what do you mean? But obviously it's a compliment, but tell us more about him.
I would say that my pops is a very well-known person. He grew up in the Bronx, New York, in Kingsbridge Terrace with my grandmother and his brother, and he just he right now he's a CO at a jail right now. He's making some decent living for himself. And over the years, he's never really been like somebody that's famous. You know what I'm saying? He knows a lot of people that happen to grew up being famous. For example, like Noriega, I don't know if you know this, or 50 Cent. He grew up with people like that. And you know what I'm saying? He's a little older and he raised them. But he's never been someone that like needed to go out and get famous or felt like he needed to be heard. He always just kind of just like it's just like I would say like the man behind the mirror, you know what I'm saying? He's never really super like outgoing, but he just always told me knowledge that I needed to know. And he's always made sure that I was the man or my sisters were the woman that they needed to be. So I ultimately just respect that. He's a little bit of a smart, evil genius. He's super good at chess and it's just like he's quiet with this. I wouldn't say he's evil. He's just, you know, he knows exactly what he's talking about. And I appreciate that.
He's smart. But this is going to be a tough question, but I'm confident we can work this out. So you've got a podcast. Your dad comes on. He's excited to be on. He's not afraid of the mic, the camera. He's wants to do it with you. What 2, 3, 4, 5? We can brainstorm. What questions are you going to ask him? Let's start with 3. Like, what 3 questions on Knowledge4Knowledge are you asking Pops?
Man, I would say, dang, that's a good one, Ben. I'm not gonna lie.
It's gonna happen, so I'm trying to prep you for it. You know,
that's a good prep, man. That's a good prep. I would say, what was it like growing up in a hard? I would say because he grew up in the Bronx and he grew up in the New York area, New York City area, when it was a rough time. You know what I'm saying? If you ever watched the movie Get Paid in Full, that's exactly how the world was, where it was like a lot of drug abuse and stuff like that. Not that he was entitled to any of that. But I would number one say was, how did you stay focused and how did you stay above water during that time when all of that was right in your face? And how did you guide away from that? That'd be my number one question. I would say number 2, he was super good at basketball back in the day. I would say, what made you give up? What made you stop? You know what I mean? What made you go in a different field of work? So what made you stop pursuing that dream? And number 3, I would say is, at what point in life did you realize you didn't need to earn the respect from everybody? That'd be my last question. It'd be one of my 3 questions right there.
Third one's what do you mean by that? Earn the respect. You know,
I would say he's a very respected person, no matter where we go, no matter what state we're in. I feel like everybody knows him, and I don't know how. We go to Manhattan, he's known. We go to Queens, he's known. We go to Brooklyn, he's known. And I respect that. It's my dad. You know what I'm saying? So I always ask, like, you know what I mean? Like, I try to say that I'm a pretty cool person. He's a pretty cool person. And I get it from him, my mom, and my dad. Shout out my mom and my dad. But I would say that like he's a very respected person. And I just like, for me, like I feel like only at 20 years of age, you can only have so much respect because I've only gone through so much. He's about to turn 50 on April 10th, on next Wednesday, I believe it is. So at 50 years old, how did you get to know? How did you really like? How have you, over the years, how did you get to tell yourself that, like, you know what, I don't really need this person's respect in order for me to keep doing that? So I don't feel like I need everybody's respect, but it would be nice to know because I have to be known as a respected person. You know what I mean? I would not everybody disrespect me. So I'm just I would ask him, like, when did you learn to just let it go? When did you learn to just kind of turn that off button on and just not care what everybody else thought?
It's impressive. I think most people, like, you want respect. You like respect, you appreciate respect, but needing it is kind of a different category because, like, needing to be liked, I feel like we kind of hide in the corner and we're not our real self sometimes. Right. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. My dad once tells me all the time, he tells me all the time, 2 things. He said, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a hero dies but once. And basically every time that when he's like, you know what, every time you or I are like, you know, today's not the day, or you're overthinking about a post, you know what I'm saying? You're overthinking that LinkedIn post, you're overthinking that Instagram post. That's you dying over and over in your head as a coward, just not going for it. But as a hero, when you just go out and you just do it and see what happens. For example, like what we did, you create, like, look at you back there behind you, Real Business Connections. That's you, Ben. That's you. You created that just by being a hero and you making that step. And you got to give, you know what I'm saying? You got to give your roses to yourself. You got to show love to that. But another thing I would say is, like, he taught me this other thing that was like, you can only give somebody water. You can't make them drink it. You know what I mean? So you can only give me the knowledge. I can't always take it with me, but when it comes to like respect, you can only give it. You can only give the respect. Not everybody's gonna give it to you. You're not gonna always earn it for everybody. So at the end of the day, I had to just learn, and he had to just learn, or you just had to learn that I'm not gonna get it from everybody. You know what I mean? Which is the hard part. You know, I can't please everybody. So I'm still like taking it day by day as a 20-year-old that I can't win everybody over. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Boom. You know, it's funny. You can lead a horse to water. You could give someone water. You can't get them to drink.
Mm.
But I always say if they're thirsty enough,
Mm.
they'll start drinking. And the issue is we wait until we're dehydrated to drink the water. Like we kind of get in our own way. Like, have you ever ran into that where like you have what you need, you have the capacity, you're smart enough, you're athletic enough, you're ready, but like you get in your own way, like you don't drink the water. Like, has that ever happened to you? It happens to me all the time, man.
I would say it happens to me all the time too, man. I'm not gonna lie, because I have all this stuff to like. It's everything you need is in your phone. Is what my dad tells me all the time, and what I tell myself all the time. Excuse me, but like I said, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, but a hero dies but once. I do a lot of overthinking when it comes to my posts. Sometimes I'm trying to make like the perfect post, but what I've come to notice is that my perfect posts are when I'm genuinely just pick up the phone and I talk.
Okay.
And I would say that I gotta just figure it out. I'd say that my biggest thing is I'm mentally really consistent, and in the weight room I'm really consistent. I just need to be more consistent with my craft. You know what I mean? Like you have real business connections, I have knowledge for knowledge, and you're posting something every day. I need to get on that wave frame if I want it to work. I say my biggest flaw is just being not want to say consistent. It would just be it would be overthinking my consistency. You know what I mean?
It's funny. I haven't been posting every day lately. I used to every day like clockwork. And I was even thinking about putting out a post saying, I'm going to post less. Why? Because I feel like it. But here's the thing. I'm kind of on a high horse, but I kind of earned the right. Like if you grind and you work and you accomplish things and you build an audience and you reach your goals, like God rested on the last day. Resting's not bad.
Right.
Resting's not bad. I think one of the problems though is people rest every day.
Right.
But like I'm being honest with my listeners. I'm going through a rest period. I'm going to start putting out less content. I'm going to start putting out better content, but I'm going to start putting out less content. And I'm just bringing out a nuanced point here that like there's a time to grind and there's a time to rest. But I think a big problem is people never do the grind. They only rest. And if you rest, like I think that making a decision to be lazy is still a decision. Like making a decision to not be lazy, making a decision to be lazy, they're both decisions. Like you said, you hit the gym. Nothing wrong with Netflix. I binge it all the time. But if gym or Netflix, it's a choice. You know, we all have a choice. And I'm just being honest. I'm choosing to be lazier for the next little bit. But I think I deserve it. What are your thoughts on that, man? I think that it depends on where someone is in their life, what they need to do.
I would say that I agree with you in a way, but I'll also say that everybody wants to be great, but not everybody's willing to put the work in.
Fair.
You know what I'm saying? I would say that I'm a person where I rested a lot. Like I played the video game a lot. My always goal when I was in 8th and 9th grade, I wanted to play D1 baseball. I only made it to D3 baseball my last year, freshman year. I could probably play over here at Brockport, but that's a different story. I would say that everybody wants to be great. It doesn't want to put the work in. So I would just ultimately say that it is ultimately a choice. You know what I mean? And it's a get up and you got to wake up and you got to make that choice. And everything is like, you got to be so comfortable with being uncomfortable sometimes that every day is a challenge, and it's a process, and you do have to trust that process. But I would say ultimately there is some days where you know, let me go sit down. But those days for me ultimately are like, I feel guilty resting. Like if I'm not in the work, if I didn't work out or if I didn't make a post today, I feel like I didn't do anything. I feel like I didn't do anything all day. I feel like I didn't win the day. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, tomorrow's not promised. So I'm going to try to be able to just do as much as I can in that day. And no matter how tired I am, there's always room to sleep. There's not room to win. I want to make as much room in the world as I can to win and just go out there and do what I can.
So winning day, where like you're firing on all cylinders, like everything goes perfect. You feel like, what does that look like? Like what's the perfect day? What are you doing in the morning? What are you doing during the day? What are you working on? You tell me, like, if you're firing on all cylinders, what's it look like?
Perfect day. It's funny. A lot of I ask these people a lot that question. Perfect day. I'm waking up around 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting a good breakfast in. Nothing too crazy. Nothing too heavy. And after that, I'm gonna go work out. And then during the workout, I'm gonna think about something for knowledge for knowledge. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna put myself 5 years in the future. I'm gonna open up. I'm gonna be on the bench press. I'm gonna hit up. You know what a PR is? Personal best
Personal
or record.
record?
Yeah, personal record on the bench.
Like a max out.
Yep. I'm gonna take my phone just like this after I'm done, and I'm gonna record for the app a knowledge for knowledge post. And when it's all said and done, there's millions of people on there. I'm gonna make a post just like that. And then after that, I'm gonna end my day off because at that point I made my day. But today and age, I would say my perfect day is waking up, being mentally and physically aware, and just being able to post on knowledge for knowledge, or being able to wake up, being able to work out and just be the person I am. That's a perfect day to me. You know what I'm saying? Whatever comes. I can't control tomorrow, and I can't go back to yesterday. I gotta just be aware of the present. And that's why it's called the present. So any day I get is a perfect day to me, to be honest with you, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, the past is clicking away. Right. All we got is the present, and then it clicks away, right? You said 10 a.m. That seems pretty late. You're waking up at 10 a.m. You a night owl?
I'm not a bit. I actually am a night owl. I can do a lot of my grinding at 2, 3 in the morning. But I would say that I'm not really big on the mornings. I'm not a big morning guy. I won't lie to you, Ben. I'm not a really big morning guy.
I don't have a problem with that. I see people like 4:30 in the morning taking a selfie at the gym. Like, to each his own. If you're doing your best work at 2 o'clock, you're not getting up at 4 in the morning. So to each his own. But when you're up, it sounds like you work.
Yeah, I am. I definitely am going hard. I got to show my people. Not even just show people. I got to show myself that I'm doing it for myself. You know what I mean? Because I feel like at the end of the day, like, rather you're crazy, rather you're outgoing, rather you take the risk, rather you don't take the risk, rather you're just you, someone's going to always have something to say about you. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, if you're sitting at a group of 4, or you're sitting at a group of 5, and you get up and you now make that table 4 people, they're going to talk about you. You know what I mean? Whether that's positive or negative. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that each day that I get, that I'm going 110% is, because at the end of the day, you got to just do it for yourself, because people are going to talk about you regardless. You know what I mean? You got to just block that out and just do it for you. You got to do it for you, Ben Alberts, or me, Michael Richardson. You know what I mean?
I love it. Dude, I forget who said it, but you basically get rewarded in public for what you did in private.
Right.
You get rewarded in public for what you did in private. I hired a personal trainer, didn't tell anybody about it, didn't post about it. I was doing it for me. And I worked with him for quite a bit. And then I'm maxing out on the bench press. I had my girlfriend take a video. I'm maxing out pretty good weight. And I put it on my story just like half-assed, because I felt confident, because I had been doing it for months and no one even knew I was working out. And then I get flooded with DMs like, oh my God, great job, this and that. Like, people were loving on it. They had, I don't know, I'm lazy. Like, I'm out of shape. Like, they didn't know I'd been working out, and then I'm bench pressing. But people see like the reward. They see all the DMs, but they don't, it took a lot to get there.
Right. Absolutely.
It's not like you just get under the bench press and do a good job. It's not like you just pick up a baseball bat and do a good job. You got to work to get there. And that's why, you're rewarded in public for what you do in private, and what you do in private, like, nobody's watching. So that's why I just really resonate with what you're saying, because like, you're doing it for you. Like, you're doing it for you, and then you're going to get rewarded for it. But if you're not doing it for you, if you're not doing it in private, even with nobody watching, like, you're probably not going to do it,
Right. Absolutely. And you know what I mean? Like,
you got me fired up, man. You got me fired up.
I'm good. I'm glad you got me fired up. I would say just like another thing, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's at your hardest days. It's like, for example, I'm one of those people where, like, my friend, one of my closest friends that I met from home, but he goes to our school, shout out Logan Kaiser. he doesn't eat sugar. You know what I mean? And he doesn't eat sugar at all. And as not even 19 years old, I'm 20 years old. He's he's about to be 19 pretty soon. He doesn't eat sugar. And you know what I'm saying? It's not about the easiest days. And also shout out my mom. She's like 4 or 5 months not drinking soda.
Wow.
And
Good
she
for
was
her.
telling me the other day, she was like, I really want a soda. And I was like, you know what, mom? If you drink that soda, you got to look back at yourself. You know what I'm saying? You're not just letting go of 3 weeks, letting go of 4 months of not doing something. Now think about let's push it forward 2 or 3 years later. 2 or 3 years later, I'm like, dang, I really want a soda. You know what I'm saying? And that means something. It's like that really stands for something. Now, if I told you, Ben, you know what, I haven't been on my phone in a day, you're gonna be like, oh, or if say I haven't been on my phone in 30 minutes, you're like, oh, well, okay, cool.
Boom.
Now, if you tell someone I haven't been on my phone in 3 years, you're like, wow, that takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of hustle. And it's like, you got to ultimately do it for yourself, not for other people. Now, when you tell other people a story like that, they're going to respect you. And it makes you feel a lot better. But mainly it's just for you. You're trying to see your outgoing goals. You're trying to see like those goals that you wrote down, see if you can really achieve them. And I say I'm proud of those people. And one day I'll be able to have that goal one day.
Dude, how do we support you? Knowledge4Knowledge, man. You're spitting fire. I love it. I love it.
I appreciate it. I mean, just follow the Instagram, follow me on LinkedIn, Michael Richardson, anything, you know what I'm saying? I'm on Spotify, everywhere. Got to be what I can do. You know what I mean?
I got that all in the show notes, the links in the notes, man. You got a big future. What else do you want to say that we didn't get to tackle today? Anything else on your mind?
I did want to ask you one question. It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be short, whatever it's got to be. I wanted to ask, like, is there a bigger meaning behind real business connections? Is there a bigger meaning behind Ben Albert? Like, there's got to be a reason why you did all this. I'm just curious, what made you start all this?
Yeah, dude. It's literally been a journal. It's been a diary the entire time. One of my mentors, Brad Lee, talks about getting the knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it. Knowledge4Knowledge. And the thing is, like, I've learned that I can become a bridge, but what knowledge and wisdom and services and connections and ideas and help from people who have it to the folks who need it. The reason it's been a diary, it's been a journal, is because I needed it. Like, I wasn't like, hey, I'm the hotshot person that knows everything about everything. I started a podcast with no listenership out of the blue and just started reaching out to business leaders because I wanted to learn from them. So I've since then like built a business and built an audience, but I still, and people say that I'm self-deprecating or too humble. I put myself in the needed category. I put myself in the curious category. I put myself in the listener category. Even if I'm the smarter person, I'm not trying to talk about how smart I am. I want to learn from the other person. So again, getting the knowledge, the wisdom, the ideas from the people who have it to the people who need it. Since I see myself as a lifelong learner, Real Business Connections is selfishly my diary. But I know that if I share my story, if I share other people's wisdom, if I share the process, it's going to have light bulb aha moments in other people's lives. It'll create connections. And like you and I created a connection together, the audience can connect with us. I just think if the world's more educated, more knowledgeable, more wise, we've got a better place. And I'm just a ripple. Like, I'm not like the only person doing this. But if all of us are on this same mission, what does the world look like if we've got a more knowledgeable place? It's a better place. And that's really the mission behind it all. It's selfish, bro. I wanted to learn, so I started a podcast to learn. But by learning, I got to teach others. And what a great way to live your life, in my opinion. Thank you for asking, though.
Absolutely. I appreciate your answer. And one thing, I don't know if you watch Drink Champs, but Noriega and them, shout out my uncle, Smoke Champs, Booth, Mike Booth. He taught me something, taught me something. And during the podcast, it's something that I want to keep. When I expand my podcast, I want to be able to give people the roses. And I want to give you, I don't have roses for you, but I'm giving you roses. And it's basically like a congratulations. It's gratitude. It's showing love and trust, loyalty, all the above. Because at the end of the day, I like to say there's no bunk beds in the coffin. You don't die. You don't die with other people. Excuse me, you die by yourself. Yeah. I would say Ben is like I could tell that at most nights between me and you that it's sometimes it is hard. You're like, yo, is it gonna work? It's gonna work. But for someone like you to be a little older than me and to just trust the process and really just see where you are now, like you got to give you your roses. You gotta be proud of yourself, Ben, because you really are doing something. You know what I mean, man? I hope to one day be able to continue to be as consistent as you are. And just know that I got a lot of respect for you, man. Your answers, your quality over quantity content, your LinkedIn following, you being honest, you just being who you are. Like, there's not a lot of people in this world, Ben. There's not a lot of people in this world that are like you. And we need a lot more people like you, like you said. Because imagine if the world was a lot more knowledgeable, if they put in a lot of more effort like we should. And there's nothing wrong with being selfish. You know what I'm saying? You're not being selfish to where, you know what I mean, you're trying to only better yourself. You are just trying to learn. You're trying to learn for the better of the world. And I respect that, Ben. You earn my respect today and the other day too.
Dude, you're the future. Thank you. You got to do one thing for me though.
All right, what is it?
You got the Knowledge for Knowledge hoodie. I've seen the Knowledge for Knowledge logo on the Instagram. You got to get a rose on there, like hanging off the K or something. You got to get a rose hanging off it, or like some vines hanging off it. You know what I mean?
I can make that happen.
Just try it out. It could just be a variation, but you mentioned clothing brand. I'm imagining Knowledge for Knowledge, but having like roses and vines coming through it. That would be fun.
You know, it's funny.
Just think about that for me. Think about that.
I will. I have a sweatshirt on the back of it. It has it says finish the mission on the front, because I like to say, like, you know what I'm saying? Don't look at the back, look at the front, because when you're trying to keep going forward, say we're walking past, you got to see finish the mission in the forward. You don't want to turn around. You got to make sure you're just going forward. You don't look back. But on the back of that sweatshirt, there are roses. There are roses on the back of the sweatshirt. But yeah, I actually will put a rose right here. I'll test it out. I may be able to send you one out one day.
Dude, I'll be your first buyer. I'll pay for it. Make it happen. I'll be your first buyer.
I appreciate it, man.
Next episode where it exists. Well, listen, appreciate your time. We joked, like, we don't know how long this is going to go. I feel like I could go another 45 to an hour with you, but I got to go cook dinner. So,
hey, let's go eat, man. Let's go eat.
Let's do the thing, man. I appreciate you coming on the show. Knowledge for Knowledge. It's in the show notes. I support you. I just said it. You know, this kid is the future. And I appreciate all the wisdom today, man. You're crushing it.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you for having me, man.
All right, be well.
Thank you.